this video, you're gonna learn the complete history of Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn's bonkers beginnings. The superstar DC Universe anti-hero who would eventually be known as Harley Quinn is one of those uncommon characters who didn't first appear within the comic book pages. If you didn't know it by now, Harley Quinn's very first appearance was in the classic Batman the Animated Series cartoon. The Harley Quinn character first wowed fans all the way back in 1992 in the episode named Joker's Favor, and from there, well, let's just say she became the breakout character of the series, subsequently appearing throughout the show until its conclusion. It wasn't until the release of the Batman Adventures issue 12 in 1993 that we get to see the Princess of Knives printed on the page. In fact, it would take another year after that before we fans got her definitive origin story in the now classic Batman Mad Love graphic novel. Even so, Harley Quinn's early comic book appearances weren't even set within the mainline DCU continuity. They all take place within the Batman animated series dimension, and it won't be until near the turn of the millennium in the year 1999 that DC Comics would finally introduce the Harley Quinn who exists within their shared comic book universe. This all happens within the pages of Batman Harley Quinn, a graphic novel which features perhaps the most iconic image of Joker and Harley. Her twisted, convoluted introduction aside, one thing remains the same: her origin story, because you don't fix anything that isn't broken, regardless of DC Comics' admittedly weird and overly complicated history. Before she became Harley. Harley Quinn's story starts in Brooklyn, New York. Born Harleen Quinzel, she was the eldest of 4 kids in her family. Suffice it to say that Harleen was born to be a psychologist. Particularly, she had the talent and interest in the field of criminal psychology, even when she was just a kid. This only became all too apparent when Harleen developed certain romantic feelings for Bernie Bash. Now, Bernie is, well, insane. That's because he's the type of guy who is willing to literally kill someone for love, which is exactly what he did in order to make a romantic statement to his crush, Harleen. And it's right at this point in Harley's history that we get a glimpse of the underlying psychological issues happening right under that pretty little blonde hair of hers. Bernie would ultimately get caught by the authorities for committing a heinous crime. Now, if it were any other girl, they'd instantly raise a red flag upon finding out that their boy crush is criminally insane. But not Harleen, not at all. That's because she's actually kinda crushed harder on Bernie after the gruesome act. So much so that she'd end up breaking into his house to take the taxidermied body of a beaver from Bernie's dad's workshop and hold on to it as a memento for years to come. Life went on for Harleen after that. She'd prove herself to be a gifted child as she became an honor student in her school days. And not only that, but our Harley was a bona fide varsity level gymnast too. Harleen would eventually go to Gotham University for college, where she first decided to major in biological and veterinary sciences. Harleen eventually switched majors and opted to attend Gotham U's psychiatry program instead, and as expected, Harleen eventually graduated from the program with flying colors. It comes as no surprise that Dr. Harleen Quinzel would immediately find a cushy job in the city as she became the resident psychiatrist at a high-end hospital somewhere in Gotham right after finishing college. But hey, there was this gnawing feeling in the back of her mind that she just couldn't get rid of, and that's her desire to focus all her skills and energy in the field of criminal psychology. So she quit her job at the hospital and started to work at the infamous Arkham Asylum. At the time, Arkham's medical staff were having problems with rehabilitating their patients, so Dr. Quinzel came up with a radical approach to help. Her unprecedented method for treating Arkham's loonies involved her going undercover and posing as one of Arkham's inmates in order to get deep inside their minds. Oh, and it failed. It failed horribly. Harleen met the clown prince of crime, Joker, shortly after proceeding with her plan. Initially, Harleen believed that the doctors at Arkham actually misdiagnosed the Joker, so she treated him as her trophy patient. But boy oh boy did the tables turn quickly when Joker instantly sussed out that Harleen wasn't really one of the asylum's patients. He knew that she was part of Arkham's staff, so as Joker tends to do, he put on that creepy winning smile of his and turned on the charms to get close to Harleen. Whether it was all an act or something more genuine, Joker seemed impressed with Harleen when she wasn't fazed with his insanity. The two gradually got closer to each other. In fact, Joker even wormed his way closer to Harleen by letting her know that he knew about her family's history. Particularly, Joker was aware that a drunk driver had killed Harleen's dad in a vehicle accident when she was young, and the same culprit got off scot-free thanks to his connections in the Justice Department. During one of their sessions, Joker handed Harleen the drunk driver's severed finger and told her that true justice had been served. And well, this is where everything started to take a villain villainous turn for the woman who would eventually be known as Harley Quinn. Joker's gesture had Harleen head over heels for him. She didn't think twice when the clown prince of crime asked her to join him so that he could teach her how to become as strong and powerful as he was. Specifically, Joker was aiming to educate Harleen on how to live life without the constraints of societal's rules. Harleen's secret would eventually come to light when a rival doctor at the asylum named Storano tried to steal her files so that she could plagiarize them. But instead of finding out about revolutionary advancements in criminal psychology, all Storano found were lovey-dovey letters that professed Harleen's love for the Joker. Harleen ultimately found out about this and tried to take out Storano. The asylum's guards tried to stop her, but she ended up eliminating one of them before going into the cells and breaking her sweetheart Joker out of the facility. Joker would then lead Harleen to the place where he became the man that he was, Ace Chemicals. He promised her that this was the day that she was finally going to be truly born in this world, and it would all start when she takes a dive into one of the chemical vats in the processing plant. In a moment of clarity, Harleen hesitated, but Joker ultimately didn't give her a choice as he then pushed her right into one of the huge vats. Harleen sank, and a few moments later, someone entirely different would emerge. Because after Joker drained the Ace Chemical vat that he dunked Harleen into, he'd find out that the former psychiatrist had become one of his greatest achievements, a person who was completely detached from reality. In any case, Joker did keep his promise as Harleen became free from societal restraints. He gave her the name Harley Quinn, and he and the former medical professional became inseparable. The Joker eventually broke off his relationship with Harley, and the breakup was bad too, but Harley got over it in time. Well, it took a long time, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Harley slowly turns a new leaf. Now, Harley Quinn didn't exactly get over her ex instantly after their breakup. In fact, you could even say that she became codependent with Joker during their time as a couple, which drove her to go on a warpath against a bunch of lawyers who crossed her former lover. But the Black Canary managed to stop her violent spree and sent her to jail. Harley was sent to Belle Reve prison after the incident. Then she was put on death row shortly after that. However, Belle Reve and the US government's higher-ups had other plans for Harley. Harley would eventually find herself passing out inside her prison cell at Belle Reve. When she woke up, she found out that a miniature explosive had been planted inside her body, and then the hits just keep on coming because after that, she was tortured. All of this was a test for Harley, one propagated by Amanda Waller, the director of a government agency known as Argus. You see, Amanda was planning on forming a team made up of super criminals to undergo wet works missions for the US government. She dubbed this collective a Task Force X, but it's more commonly known as the Suicide Squad. Harley would then become part of this team after going through Waller's shady audition methods. Joined by the likes of the fellow Belle Reve inmates Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, El Diablo, and King Shark, among others, the Suicide Squad's first mission came in the form of stopping a virus that turned people into zombie-like creatures. In addition to that, they also had to kidnap a baby that Waller believed to be the key to finding a cure for this virus. Harley went on that mission, and hey, she even developed a thing for Deadshot along the way. However, Harley's time with Suicide Squad won't last long. That's because she would escape Waller's clutches when one of the Task Force X guards accidentally turned off the micro-explosive inside Harley's body before taking her back to her cell. And to make sure that she can gain some distance from her captives, Harley even instigated a riot at Belle Reve before leaving. Ultimately, Waller ordered the rest of the Suicide Squad to retrieve Harley and get her back into the fold. Here's the thing though, Harley wasn't fully over Joker. In fact, the main reason she escaped Waller and the Task Force X was to confirm if her ex was actually dead after her fellow Suicide Squad member Captain Boomerang mentioned it in passing. While Harley would then head over to Arkham Asylum to get to the bottom of this rumor. When she got there, Harley also managed to get some help from a numerous amount of Arkham inmates to deal with the rest of Task Force X while she investigated Joker's apparent demise. So while the inmates were busy fighting the rest of the Suicide Squad, Harley made her way to Storano's office to hold her hostage and ask for details about her ex. Storano spilled the beans and told her that the Joker had apparently been flayed alive. In addition to that, Storano told Harley where she could find Joker's skin, the Gotham City Police Department. As a thank you for catching her up with recent events and as payback for trying to screw her over in the past, Harley took out Storano before surrendering herself to Gotham Police. Little did the cops know that this was exactly part of Harley's plan to find Joker's supposed remains. She'd eventually locate it with the unwitting help of her other teammates from the Suicide Squad. However, Deadshot managed to catch up to Harley just before she could get away from the police department. She'd end up knocking him out, and when Deadshot woke up, he'd bear witness to Harley's pure, unfettered madness. Remember when we said that Harley hasn't fully gotten over a breakup? Yeah, this all came to a boiling point when she took Deadshot captive and literally placed Joker's flayed skin over his head. Then Harley started addressing Deadshot as her former lover. Seeing that the woman in front of him had gone full cuckoo, Deadshot played along and pretended to be the Joker, while Harley asked why he broke up with her. Eventually, Deadshot found an opening when Harley was in the middle of her episode, so he whipped out his piece and shot the crazed clown lady right in the gut. Harley would once again become Waller's captive after that, but the combined pressures of her own insanity and recently getting shot had left Harley even more mentally unhinged than before. This time, she created a whole new identity for herself, where she started to believe that she was solely, exclusively the woman only known as Dr. Harleen Quinzel. Still, Waller wanted to employ Harley Quinn's more violent and dangerous skills, so she opted to let her rejoin Task Force X with the mission of capturing a person known as Regulus, the leader of a criminal organization known as Basilisk. Harley participated in the assignment, which eventually led to the Suicide Squad discovering that there is a traitor in their midst. Ultimately, Harley and the team would find out that this traitor was none other than their teammate Black Spider, who also turned out to be an agent of Basilisk. A whole encounter ensues where we find out that Black Spider had gained control of the minds of the Suicide Squad except for Harley and Deadshot, and this mission all came to a head when their target, Regulus, finally revealed himself and got a hold of Deadshot in the process. Harley tried to save him, but Deadshot beat her to the punch when he used one of his guns to shoot both himself and Regulus in a move that keeps true to their team's Suicide Squad moniker. Harley would then attend Deadshot's funeral not long after the Basilisk mission. It's here that she'd meet with the Joker again, as the Clown Prince of Crime attacked the solemn affair with his trademark Joker toxin, which ravaged each and every one of the funeral's attendees. That is, except for Harley, because she's immune to that, all thanks to the same ace chemicals that initially transformed her into the insane villain. Joker saw Harley here and expressed his disappointment at her for being part of the Suicide Squad. Since Harley had a thing for Joker, she agreed to reunite with him. In fact, the Clown Prince of Crime went into another one of his schemes as he asked her for a favor that would allow him to forgive her for joining the Suicide Squad. This favor involved Harley putting on Joker's old Red Hood costume and using it as bait to trap Batman. It worked too, as the Caped Crusader ultimately fell for the ruse, which ended with him almost taking an acid bath at Joker's favorite theme park, Ace Chemicals. However, this particular episode in Harley's life was also the same one that saw her realizing how much she was being used. Harley realized that the insane clown she once loved wasn't the same man she knew, as the Joker had become more brutal at this point in his life. In a moment of clarity, Harley revealed her thoughts about the Joker to Batman. Unfortunately, the Clown Prince of Crime got wind of this, which in turn made him think that Harley was the one who changed. He confronted her, and she tried to convince Joker that she was still the insane partner in crime he knew, but the prince did not believe it. So they ended up having a breakup to end all breakups. By that we mean the Joker and Harley tried to kill each other, like literally. The Clown Prince of Crime tried to choke her out and even feed Harley to her pet hyenas, but Harley managed to fight back and almost succeeded at ending the Joker for good. The Joker would escape, however, but Harley would discover something more valuable: self-respect. After that whole encounter, we'd find out that Deadshot was alive all along, and Harley would end their little fling too, because at this point, Harley had decided to become her own woman. Harley on her own. With the Suicide Squad and the Joker now in the rear view mirror, Harley decided to live life on her own terms. She initially stayed in one of her old hideouts, but ultimately discovered that the Joker left an explosive in it for her. It destroyed the place when it blew up, and the only thing Harley was able to save was this stuffed beaver she stole from Bernie's dad all those years ago. In fact, she even named the beaver Bernie in honor of her old flame. Having found herself homeless, Harley's fortune mysteriously turned when she received the title to a 4-story building somewhere in Coney Island. She didn't know exactly who gave it to her, except for the fact that it was an old patient that she used to treat. From there, Harley made her way to New York, but it wasn't like she was sent here to live the rest of her days in peace, because not long after getting to Coney Island, a hired assassin tried to take her out. out. Harley survived the attempt and managed to eliminate her assailant. After that, Harley reached the building and discovered that the property that she had been bequeathed was also home to a band of odd individuals. There she met a man named Big Tony, who also happened to be one of the building's tenants. To her credit, Harley did try to live a relatively normal life. She applied for a job as a therapist at a senior care facility, and our girl was literally busting her butt when she moonlighted as a roller derby player at the same time. But as you'd expect, trouble was always at Harley's heels. Another hired killer tried to take her out, but Big Tony helped Harley survive. They then discovered that someone put a bounty on her head. Still, life went on for Harley, and hey, she'd even become a bit of an activist during her time in New York. Along with her close friend Poison Ivy, Harley would find herself freeing a bunch of animals from the local shelter after they found out they were being set to put to sleep. This turned out to be a bit of a mess, so in one of the most adorable scenes, Harley decided to adopt each and every one of the good boys and girls from the shelter. Sounds like Harley's becoming a bona fide hero, right? Well, let's not speak too soon, because it's also right around this time that Harley took a job from Sylvester Borgeman, one of the old folks at the senior home she's been working at. And this job, well, it involved taking out a bunch of Russian spies who Sylvester believed to be the ones responsible for permanently injuring him. Harley would then succeed in this mission, and not long after that, she and Poison Ivy would find out the truth about who exactly put a bounty on her head. And we hope you're ready for this, guys, because we find out that Harley herself was the one who placed the hit on her, and it all happened when she put out the order while sleepwalking. Harley would continue living her own life in Coney Island and even make friends with its tenants along the way. In fact, she'd even find herself as a guest performer at one of their cabaret performances. Harley inadvertently caused a riot with her performance here, which ended up with her getting arrested again. But here's the kicker. It turns out that the cop who put her in cuffs wasn't even a real police officer. He was just a deranged dude with the hots for Harley. In a surprising turn of events, Harley managed to convince the guy to get some medical help for his condition. After that, she went to her job at the local roller derby, where things took another dark turn when she accidentally took out one of the players from the team they're playing. But we get to see Harley actually have a semblance of sanity at this point too, because that whole incident bore heavy on her conscience. Shortly after that, Harley met a man named Mason McCobb, and it didn't take long for another kooky adventure to begin when the superhero Power Girl literally crashed into the ground right beside Harley. Seeing this, Harley asked Big Tony and Mason's help to check up on Power Girl, and they found out that the superhero had a case of amnesia. Now, Harley might be turning over a new leaf, but she sure as hell isn't your typical superhero. Instead of handing Power Girl over to the local hospital or the Justice League, Harley convinced her to form a superhero tandem with her. Making Power Girl believe that they were besties, Harley even managed to make Power Girl work as a strong woman at their local show. One day, the villains Clock King and Sportsmaster attacked the two, which ended up with Harley and Power Girl being marooned on another world. The two would eventually find their way back home, with Harley keeping up the ruse. However, the jig was up when Power Girl's memories eventually came back to her. And let's just say that the superhero wasn't too happy that Harley messed with her throughout her whole time without her memories. But on the other hand, Power Girl also admitted to growing fond of her friendship with the pasty-faced mischief maker. So instead of fighting about it with Harley, Power Girl just decided to play a prank on her friend and tie the Princess of Knives on top of the Eiffel Tower. Now, it's a known fact that Harley Quinn was truly, deeply, and insanely in love with the Joker, but we also eventually find out that throughout her story that this kooky jester also had a huge crush on Bruce Wayne. In fact, Harley was the highest bidder during a charity auction that saw a date with the Playboy billionaire as the featured lot. She wouldn't be able to have a romantic evening with Bruce though, because the event was disrupted when a D-list villain named the Cod kidnapped him. But hey, there's a bright side to all this. Harley ended up saving Bruce, and she was able to have that date with him after all. After that, Harley even got a chance to lock lips with the Dark Knight detective without knowing that he and Bruce were the same person. So they all ended up spending some time together after all, and a pleasant one at that. Harley would then continue to have her own adventures at the corner of the DC universe. Most notable among them was the time when she teamed up with Princess of Themyscira herself, Wonder Woman. And it wasn't just an ordinary team up either, because Harley ended up saving Wonder Woman's life from a surprise attack during this particular adventure. In between her solo adventures, Harley would then rejoin a newly revamped version of the Suicide Squad. As before, she'd go on a government-sanctioned mission with the team, such as retrieving an artifact from the Russian Gulag, which turned out to be a gateway to the Kryptonian prison known as the Phantom Zone. During this encounter, Harley and the Suicide Squad would battle classic Superman villain General Zod, and they'd end up with a W after a grueling fight with this Kryptonian. Harley's true love. Now, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy's romantic relationship was only hinted at for decades, right from their early team-ups on the Batman the Animated Series to the sly hints that we got from the comics over the years. However, we finally more or less got the much anticipated confirmation about this power couple during 2018's Heroes in Crisis event. During this storyline, Poison Ivy admits herself to a mental institution specifically created for superheroes called the Sanctuary. Being the best girl that she is, Harley decided to sneak her way into the institution to be with Ivy. While there, Ivy managed to convince her girlfriend to participate in Sanctuary's program to help Harley put a permanent end to Joker's lasting influence on her psyche. Everything seemed great until a freak accident happened inside the facility. A huge explosion rocked Sanctuary and ended the lives of everyone inside it, except for a couple of patients, Harley Quinn and the fast-talking superhero Booster Gold. That's right guys, Ivy was one of the casualties of this unfortunate event, so naturally, Harley thought that Booster was the one responsible for causing the explosion. The feeling was mutual as Booster believed it was Harley who destroyed the Sanctuary. A grieving Harley Quinn would try to take out Booster Gold, but both of them would ultimately end up in the hands of the Justice League who were investigating the incident. Still, Harley would continue to plan out Booster's assassination and even manage to team up with Batgirl over the course of the saga. Eventually, Harley would catch Booster Gold in her crosshairs for a second time and they'd end up in a fight. Harley would defeat Booster, but she'd end up backing down from taking the guy out when cooler heads prevailed. The two fugitives would then start talking it over like grown-ups and discover that the body of Wally West, the second man to wear the mantle of the Flash, was found on the scene of the explosion. However, there was a curious detail that their investigation yielded because Wally's remains were a few days older than the rest of the victims at Sanctuary. Ultimately, Harley and Booster would discover that the person behind the Sanctuary explosion was none other than Wally West himself. It turns out that Wally's Speed Force abilities went all haywire, which then caused the explosion at the facility. In the aftermath, Wally panicked and decided to pin it on Harley and Booster by faking his own death using a dead clone of himself. In the end, both Harley and Booster were cleared from the crime, and it all worked out for Harley's love life too, because it was revealed that Poison Ivy's altered DNA allowed the plant-controlling hero to revive herself using her powers. Best of all, Harley and Ivy continued their relationship after this whole mess at the Sanctuary. Harley, so far. Harley would then regularly appear with yet another stint with the Suicide Squad. This time, she and longtime Task Force X teammate Deadshot would team up with newcomers like Magpie, the Shark, Cavalier, and Zebra Man. During one of their adventures, Harley and the rest of the squad had to face a group of rebels called the Revolutionaries, whose motives would eventually be revealed to be to infiltrate Amanda Waller's organization. Harley would then play a key supporting role in the Batman family crossover event called the Joker War, and suffice it to say that she'd go through the ringer here. For one, the supervillain Punchline managed to nearly take her out in gruesome fashion, but Harley ultimately survived the encounter. Even better, Harley even saw the opportunity to save the Caped Crusader himself from the Joker's attack at the Monarch Theater over the course of this mega event. Not only that, but even she and Poison Ivy literally saved Batman's life by curing him of the Joker's Venom's effects. And you know what guys, not only did Harley save the Dark Knight detective's life during this whole adventure, but she's basically the person responsible for ending the Joker War. In the climactic battle between Batman and the Clown Prince of Crime, Joker was able to nearly take out Batman. It was only when Harley pulled out a rifle and shot her ex that the threat was finally put to a stop. And to drive home the point that she's a bona fide hero now, Harley went on to take the explosives that Joker set up around the place to avoid any further casualties. In the end, Harley would end up at the hospital a little worse for wear, but she'd emerge as the real MVP of the Joker War. After that, Harley Quinn would face a crazed vigilante called the Clown Hunter, who's basically just a teenager who started a war against all clowns after the Joker War. Suffice it to say that she didn't take this kid seriously, not to mention the fact that she'd eventually got caught up with Batman's beef with a villain named Ghostmaker during this storyline. We next see Harley in a rather minor role during DC's Dark Knight's death metal event, where we discover that that she'd become a post-apocalyptic warlord of a nuclear waste-laden American West Coast populated by mutant ghouls. As for the present, well, Harley had recently moved back to Gotham City, and this time she finally decided to try and become a legit superhero working on the side of justice. Well, at least in her own little crazy way.